That's an a vineyard.
Is that a neighbor's vineyard?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Okay, we are now live on YouTube. No one's watching, but except maybe the YouTube, the YouTube technicians. And I'm showing right now is pictures of different things. So they're hearing us.
Okay.
Well, if they were listening, they would be hearing us.
They're hearing us if they're hearing this.
Yes. And anyone in the world could be listening and watching this little video if they have access to YouTube.
True.
So, shall we introduce ourselves?
Let's do that.
Who are you?
My name is Monica Bell. That was my given name. And I live in Port Hadlock, Washington State in the United States on planet Earth.
Cool.
Who are you?
My name is Matt Reddy. And I also live in Washington State. But I have a lot of identities. I normally list them off at the beginning of my...
Oh, go for it.
Well, I'm an elected politician. I do tell people that.
An elected politician.
Yeah, I'm a hospital commissioner. Yeah.
Flash that card.
Yeah. I mean, but that's not like my primary identity. I'm a activist. I think of myself as a philosopher as my primary identity.
Whoa.
But I do have a BA in philosophy. But, I think a lot of the philosophers out there would not want to say I'm a philosopher with a BA in philosophy. Although I did publish a book.
On philosophy.
Well, on mindful activism, which is a very philosophical topic. I mean, I'm a philosopher in the spirit of like Thoreau, In any case, and I'm a developer of the Hive1.net platform and the host of the Mindful Activist webcast.
Where was your mother born, Matt?
My mother, I think, was born in Massachusetts.
Okay, what's her name?
Mary Reddy.
Mary Reddy.
Why do you ask about my mother?
Well, we've been talking a lot about power and vortexes, and it's an interesting thing in our society that's very patriarchal, that we don't honor the female bloodline necessarily. And I was once I went to a panel where a civil rights elder who passed away a couple years ago, Vincent Harding, asked this question of all the youth on the panel. They're talking about violence and racism in the inner city, and he asked them all to introduce themselves by saying their name and their mother's name, where their mother was born, and it brought a different spirit to, like, we all came through our mothers. They're like the vortex we came into the physical realm through. Yeah. So. Oh,
I thought, and then at that meeting, you are bringing everyone's mother into the room right there. So it's like you're bringing the spirit of mother love and relationship and all the complexity that is there
and honoring it
through everyone's mind, but forcing them just say your mother's. You could have just said say your mother's name, but say your mother's name and where she was born. You're now taking it back to her mother. You're invoking 2 levels of mother power to go through that person speaking before they say anything else. I love that as a warm-up exercise.
Yeah. So Mary in Massachusetts?
Mary.
Nice.
Yes. And she's no longer with us.
She's passed.
Yes. So.
Sorry for your loss. How long ago did she go?
I think 10, might be over 10 years now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're with us right now, Mary.
Mm-hmm.
So, Matt, what do you want to talk about?
Well, for you to be to be able to say you were a guest of the Mindful Activist, I have to ask you the one question I ask every guest.
I like that.
Which is, do you consider yourself an activist?
I do not self-identify as an activist. Nope. I don't. Do you want to know why?
If you want to tell us why, sure.
A long while ago, I was going to a university that had as its motto, educating minds and hearts to change the world. And that's part of why I applied to go to that university. It's like, wow, that's a great motto. Like, I want to be educated, my mind and heart, to change the world. And that's something you say a lot. Also, I want to change the world. Like, let's change the world for the better. And I was really focused on school, very motivated, getting really good grades, working my butt off. And after I graduated, I was living in San Francisco, in California, and I was dating a man who, after all my studies, I decided I wanted to go away from the city and go learn how to grow food. And part of that is that I really wanted to have a sense of self-sufficiency, and that was something I was really passionate about at the time. And this person I was dating didn't want me to move away from the city because he liked dating and he was comfortable where he was and was afraid he was going to lose our relationship. So getting around to the activist part, in the heat of a conversation where he was feeling really afraid I was going to move, he got really frustrated and just said, "You can't change the world." And I said to myself, that is the wrong answer. And in my mind I was thinking, I went to this school where we're focusing on changing the world, and I'm absolutely going to be part of changing the world, and who are you to tell me that I can't? And then after thinking about it for even more time, I started realizing this whole notion of changing the world or not changing the world it's so silly, because by being in the world, we are changing it. By being human beings, even if we were rocks, we would be changing the world, because wind would be blowing against us, we would be sinking into the soil and compressing things, worms would want to hang out underneath us. We can't not change the world. So when I think about the word activist, I have the same feeling of like, we are all active. We are all playing a really important part. And sometimes I feel that the word activist is used as a way to judge or evaluate someone's efficacy in changing the world in a positive way. And it tends to be used by people who have the time, like the monetary privilege and the time and the energy to do things that are community oriented, that are not feeding their family or sheltering their kids. So I don't call myself an activist, because I feel that everyone is playing a really important part in creating the world that we all want to live in together.
It's kind of like, if you look at what Martin Luther King said about, it's like you're not going, I'm going to butcher the quote, but it's something like you're not going to remember like the actions of your enemies, you're going to remember the inactions of your friends. Mm-hmm. It's like, so if you're not an activist, are you standing still, ignoring, pain and suffering around you? I mean, it's like.
So you're saying you want people to be activists? Is that
well, I actually say it's at commission meetings, because I get, several times other commissioners said, "Don't bring your activism in here," and I'm like, activism just means trying to take action to make the world a better place.
Agency.
I think that's what every human being is doing. It doesn't make sense to say don't bring it in here. I mean, we're in a position of power over a hospital district. We should be actively trying to make the world a better place. Thus, activism. I don't understand what you're saying. So anyways, I brought this up in there, and on my show, I consider myself an activist for the exact reasons you consider yourself not an activist, because it's like we are all, whatever it is we're talking about, we're all that,
we're all agents of change. We all have a lot of power.
Yeah, and you might be sitting there like a lump, but you're sitting there like a lump is causing an effect in the world, just
That's
like
true.
a rock. Like you said, rocks have power. You sitting there like a lump in your position of power, or in your position in your community, or in your friendships, or in your whatever, it is affecting the world. Your lumpiness is affecting us, if nothing else, your lumpiness, because we have to drive around you and have to go.
You're counted
over
in the census, or you're pooping and your waste is maybe you're pooping. You're probably eating, maintaining homeostasis. You're ingesting certain. We will get into that later. I have a lot of feelings about human fertility cycles. Anyway. But I love that. For the exact same reasons you say, no, I'm not an activist, and I say I am an activist. It kind of makes you a wonderful co-host for my show. That should be the way just like they have like sometimes they have a show with left, right, and center, a left wing, right wing. You and I are activists and not activists. Yet, really the only difference is how we choose to define a word. Language is so powerful.
but it puts us on different sides of a coin, which is all you need for a good conversation. 2 sides of a coin.
Nice. Like your framing there.
So I'm here with and this is very personal to me, for the activist word. I was at a activist meeting in Port Townsend a couple years ago, and it was to study the Constitution, study the history of Supreme Court laws and judgments that slowly gave corporations power over the evolution of our country. And it was like, but one of the things they asked in the room was they asked, tell us about your activism. And my dad was visiting, Jim Reddy. And
your dad,
my dad,
Jim.
and I made him go to this thing with me. I gave him the option. I said, I'm going to this thing, you can leave anytime. And he's like, oh, I'll check it out. And so we
deep voice for dad.
No, that's his voice. And so we go in there, and everyone's talking about their different things they do, and I'm right for Jim, and I describe how I was an activist with the Occupy Wall Street movement and these different things, and I'm running for office. I don't know what I was doing back then, but I hand it to my dad, and I'm like, what the heck is he gonna say? And he's like, well, yes, I'm a celebrated lifelong inactivist.
Oh, Dad.
and which is so true. He is like a lump in the Democratic left wing. He's like, I will vote, I will read, I will watch debates, but do not ask me to, go march in the street or write a letter or, I don't know where the line is for him, but he's a lifelong inactivist. And for me, that's saying something very different than what you're saying, as you're like, I'm not an activist, but you're over there with Jim Reddy in a sense.
Well, okay, so here's another piece to it, is that, I think it does come down to economic and material privilege and intellectual privilege, because a woman or a man, someone who has children or nieces or nephews, who gets up in the morning and helps that 4-year-old learn how to make breakfast, tie their own shoes, say please and thank you, who listens to their stories, in my mind, that person is doing very important work. So if we're talking about activism as really important work, then I think about the framing of like, who gets to decide whose work is important?
Yeah.
And I think throughout the lifespan, people have different phases where they have different freedom to transgress against existing power structures. And so someone who maybe never had a stable place to live or didn't have enough education to get a job that could just be part-time, and then has time to go to city council meetings, I'm not going to say that person is not doing really important work. And oftentimes I'll find people who are white, who inherited money or property, or had access to higher education, have had a lot of material privilege, economic privilege, start marching around or like stomping and shaking their fists at people for not being activists without really looking at all that they have inherited without their own work. And when a person like that gets in the face of or starts disregarding the contributions or the work of someone who didn't have the same kind of privileges, I think it's a very limited perspective, and it can divide people to when people start thinking of themselves as their work being more important. It's a big, language creating reality of activist, not activist labels.
Well, you're fading away from even whether or not you're talking about activism. You're just talking about like the worth of a human being. And when you look at a person and say, and it's like, I don't do this to people, but when people, I'm going to reflect it back at you. When people look at you and they're like, and they're angry, and it's like, why are you doing that? Why aren't you doing this? I understand your life and your world enough to judge what you're doing and why you're doing it right now. Like I'm,
you're doing to your dad.
Sure. Like I was doing to my dad, or like parents might do to their child, it's like, and if I learned it somewhere, I learned it from my parents.
Yeah.
That's a total tangent, but I've never thought about that, the evolution of a child, because I've seen it in other children. They sort of have a wisecracking father, and then it's like, whoa, when they get to 16, 17, they could be smart enough to wisecrack right back at the dad, and it becomes this very interesting male-son, father-son dynamic.
Women can do it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like with mom or with dad? Or are you specifically saying like daughter, dad?
Oh, I'm not saying that it's gender specific. I think those habits, I mean, labeling, limiting, dismissing someone's experience or their feelings or thoughts or capacity in the world is not gender specific.
No.
Humans do that across the board sometimes.
Yeah. I guess just my personal history, it traveled heavily through my male experience.
Jim, not Mary.
Oh yeah, I mean, she was, Mary was not, she loved everything I did. So
here's an interesting thing on that too, though.
Yeah.
Like if your parents as a unit raising you, your dad would dismiss your ideas or your agency or feelings. Your mom permitting him to do that was also an agent in that dismissal. Like if she didn't check that behavior and balance it out, then she was complicit.
yeah, that's really interesting, because I could like think about like my art is a very like simple like microcosm of that. The thing about art is I don't remember a single time showing them a piece of art at the same time. I would always do a separate. I mean, that's kind of because my art in a way was my way of judging other human beings, because I like knew what was good and what was not. I was very snobby and snotty about art. So I was like, when I liked it, I'd show it to people and it's a test. Like, do you like this for the reason it's worth being liked? Or, you know, I'm a little bit like getting feedback, but anyways, I was a very arrogant artist. But so I wanted to go individual. I don't want you to be influenced by, because people are always influenced by other people that make their judgment first.
Okay, so you're going to mom and dad.
I went to them separately, and mom was always incredibly positive. He was always negative, but I didn't even compare that, because I was comparing them to everyone that was judging my art. They were just like 2 drops in this bucket, and I was like, but a weird one. My dad is incredibly negative about all my art, more so than any human on earth that I've met that, you know, has looked at.
If you're listening to this right now, we're going to post a few pieces of Matt's art.
Yes.
You have a chance to compete for most negative with Jim Reddy.
Try to say something worse than what and I'll tell you what my dad said.
We're crowdsourcing haters on Matt's art. Love it.
Do you want to know what he said? No, I'll tell
Sure.
you. Well, it's just sort of like, you know, that Brad Pitt painting in my living room.
I do. I love it. Can we post it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've posted it before. Actually, I posted it.
We'll put it with this video.
Yeah. But he was just like, he just saw it. He just walked in. He's just like, ah, jeez. That's it. He's like, why can't you just like, you know, paint something normal, like a cow in a field? and I'm like, a cow in a field. That's what you really want to see, Jim. But so I've been joking with Stacy, my wife, about, you know, I'll just paint 100 cows in fields. I'll do like this series, you know, they dedicated to Jim Reddy. I'll just do like cows in fields, like
cows with Brad Pitt's head on it.
Yeah, Brad Pitt in the background. The cows are prominent in front of. Maybe my paintings could be in the field, like with the cows.
Brad Pitt riding cows. A picture of a cow with your painting. So many incarnations.
Yeah.
Your dad's kind of your muse, though, I think, in some ways.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's like, it's taken me a long time to just fully appreciate how just powerful that is. And I see that there's other, particularly men in my life, that they're just a part of that. It's like this. It's I don't know. It's like this male wisecracking, intelligent coyote type energy that I actually really feed off it.
Yeah.
I love it. You know, it's like, because once in a while they are an ally. You know, when they use that same energy that they can dig into you with against, when they really use it to fight something that's important, it's so powerful.
It's a powerful skill set to hone and to keep around and not to banish from the community. Yeah. Yeah,
and I've had to. Yeah, anyways.
Well, I'm curious. Okay, so I asked you about where your mother was born and invoked like the female vortex.
Yeah.
That's also something that has been, the power of that authority has been lost because we've come through so many years of a Christian, like an overarching Christian how you gonna describe it? Like a religious framing in the world that says that humans started with a man and his name was Adam, and when he wanted a friend, he pulled his own rib out of his body.
So you're saying that story that is at the base of like all of Western society's understanding.
To quote the movie Captain Fantastic, it's a very dangerous fairy tale.
Yes.
In that it totally disregards female agency in the creation of human bodies. Okay,
most dangerous fairy tale. We could have a list of this would be a great tangent, but what are the most dangerous fairy tales, myths in our culture? And that might be number one.
Okay. So invoking female agency and creating more human beings is really important. And so I think about your mom your mother choosing Jim Reddy to have a child with, and then raising a child in an atmosphere where I guess, and we can't ask her in the physical realm, but I would ask her what her experience was of raising a child with a man who often dismissed your ideas or criticized your ideas. And I wonder...
You mean her ideas?
I don't know about hers, but yours.
Yeah. Well, and I was one of 3 children, so it's like there's a dynamic there. And he was not like that with her. They were... I don't know if I actually have a good read of what that power dynamic was, but, I've never felt it wasn't something close to equal in just very different types of powers,
But I wonder if she ever felt that he would do that with her. But even if he didn't do that with her, so here, again, with female agency, as a woman who, and it's complicated in our society because not every community, family, couple upholds a woman's right to choose whether to have children or not. Mm-hmm. Another mythological reality we've created that I think is really harmful to human beings and to society. But so she's chosen a nest to create human beings in, and whether or not he dismisses her ideas, he dismissed your ideas in some ways. And so I wonder, I think about the role of women and mothers in choosing partners, and the role of the village in protecting or upholding children and letting children feel welcome to express themselves.
And you're making me try to remember back and see if I can ever visualize actually seeing a power struggle between them, or seeing her ever check his negativity. I
wonder how she felt about it.
But she was not afraid to speak her mind, or to swear, or to yell, or to make jokes, or to flick someone off, from her car. So she was she had her, her mama bear power.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, I think that's in this world with the incredibly different cultures, if you're raised in a household where it's at least there's Papa Bear power and Mama Bear power, and they're both strong, and they are capable of standing up to one another, if you have it at least equal like that, I think it's the best it's a healthiest.
Totally.
It's a more healthy environment than if it's imbalanced. If it's clearly there's a male dominant or female dominant household, because you're seeing weakness in the other whole dimension of the universe if you see if you have an imbalance at the top and you're growing up in that.
Which is not to say also, I'm not implying that your dad poking fun at you is has ruined you. Clearly it's made you motivated in certain ways.
That would be a bummer to come on my podcast and say, you were ruined by your dad. And that would have been a really...
How do you feel about that, Matt? Just more of exploring agency. I guess we're talking about power and mindfulness and activism, exploring agency in relationships. And I feel I noticed that communities, the root is family. And we all come through a family that forms our primary experience emotionally, energetically, and in terms of our power in the world. So,
do you have siblings?
I have 2 older brothers. Yeah.
Well, that's I would assume that's an interesting power dynamic to grow up in.
They all are. All of our experiences are interesting.
Yeah.
How are we doing on time, Matt?
We've been 24 minutes into this conversation, so we could find a place to wrap up. We went on so many. This would be a perfect conversation to have sort of mapped, on the Hive, like each topic, we just let them branch off.
Where do we go?
Yeah.
I love when there are like videos where an animator, illustrator draws all the pictures with that.
Oh, that's what we just need people to animate. Everything we talk about, just like draw pictures, and
I love it.
I like that. I could put out like a reward, like a $50 reward for the best one, and you and I will choose the best one.
And it's your $50.
Yeah, I do. Okay. You don't need to contribute.
I'll give you a thumbs up and shouts out. I'm not funded right now to do that, but maybe
I'm not either, but All right. Well, thank you so much for being another guest on my show. I haven't done one of my episodes for like 3 weeks, so.
Well, I'm glad to be part. Yeah. This is fun.
And we didn't show any video. All we showed was images, just all audio, which I liked. Creates a level of ease to the conversation.
And then we can illustrate illustrations with it if we wanted to.
Yeah. All right. Bye for now.
Bye.